I had the privilege during my college years of meeting Abie Label almost weekly and riding shotgun with him. Shotgun meant whatever he did, wherever he went, that's what I would do. Sometimes it was just sitting in his office at the Fry Hotel in downtown Seattle and just watching him do what he did. So many fascinating stories from that time, so many takeaways, watching someone manage a major real estate empire, but also how he handled people was just magical. One day I popped in right when I was supposed to be there at about 11 o'clock in the morning, and he had his briefcase packed and he was ready for me, and he said, busy, 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 busy. Now you got to picture Abie is about 5'1", just this tiny little petite man, but he would walk like you'd have to run to keep up with him. And off we went, and we got in the station wagon, this old station wagon with wood panels, and we took off, and we went 6 or 7 blocks, and we pulled into this parking lot. And I noticed when he pulled in, he waved at the parking lot attendant in the little booth, and the attendant waved at him, this African-American man. We got out of the car, and he had an envelope, and we walked across the street to this beautiful building in Pioneer Square. And on the grade level, the ground level of this building was a bank, and we were going to go into the bank. And that's what we did. We walked in the main entry door into this foyer. And instead of continuing on into the bank, Abie saw right on the left-hand wall in the foyer a night deposit. And so rather than go into the bank, I could see him go, oh, this would be easier. He had his envelope already. And so he just simply opened the little vault, put it in the night deposit, shut the door, and oh, that was easier than going into the bank. You know, I could see all of that language going on in his head. And we went right back across the street. We got in the car, and we pulled out of the parking lot. And we stopped at the toll booth, and I don't know why I remember this, but the attendant's name was Maurice. And Abie said, hello, Maurice. And Maurice said, Abie, I watched you. I see you went across the street to the bank. You know they validate parking. It would save you $1. And he went, oh, Maurice, thank you for watching out for me. I didn't know that. We'll go get that validation. And he put it in reverse and backed up. Now, I have to just tell you that what was going on inside of my 19-year-old head was, you're kidding? Why don't we just pay the $1 and keep moving, right? I've later thought a lot about it, and the reason he didn't is that it would have been disrespectful to Maurice. Maurice was looking out for him, and he wanted to show his appreciation for that. And so we backed up, we reparked, we went into the bank, and we waited in line, and we finally came up to the teller. It's a scene I'll never forget. And Abie said, hello, and he put his parking validation on the counter, and he said, I would just like my parking validated. Maurice says that the bank validates parking. And this gal says, just shoves the thing right back at him and says, you have to come in the bank and do a banking transaction in order for us to validate parking. I'm sorry, we just don't validate anybody's parking. And Abie said, oh, I did a banking transaction, but no need to waste your time. I just put it in the night deposit in the foyer. I just put it in the vault in the foyer. And so he puts the parking ticket for her again, thinking, well, I've done my transaction. And again, she shoves it right back. And she says, do you know how many times I hear that in a day? You have to come into the bank and do a transaction, so I know you've really done a transaction, then I can validate parking. Oh my gosh, I stand a foot taller than Abie, so I'm looking right over his head at this gal, and I'm ready to come through the glass, you know. But the way he handled it, he said, well, that seems odd because I did a transaction. Of course, you can check the little vault wherever that goes and see that. She said, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. Abie very kindly said, may I please speak to your manager? And here comes this guy. I could draw a sketch of him today. It was just one of these classic banker lookalikes, the round glasses, the bald hair. This guy comes up and, how can I help you? And he explains the situation. The guy says, listen, we only validate parking if you come into the bank, so there's nothing we can do. Thank you. And Abie's getting frustrated, but he never breaks kindness. And he turns around and looks at me, and then I see this little twinkle in his eye. I swear, it was one of those Santa Claus twinkles. And he goes, I think I have a solution. And he goes inside his coat pocket, his blazer pocket, and he pulls out a checkbook. And he says, is a withdrawal considered a bank transaction? And the lady says, yes. And he goes, oh, we've solved it. We've solved it. And he takes the withdrawal slip out of this checkbook and said, here's my account number. If we could please just withdraw all the money in that account and put it in the form of a cashier's check, please. He said, my young friend and I see you have free coffee. We'll go grab a cup of coffee and we'll wait for you in the lobby. It may take you a minute. And then my validation, of course. Thank you. And this lady looks at the manager, and the manager goes, you know, give him his money. And then she types in a number, and I see the look on her face. And as Abie's heading to coffee, I'm still watching them. She calls the manager up to look at what she's looking at on the screen. And immediately I see him come around the whole, counter area out into the lobby with the parking validation, goes, oh, excuse me, Mr. Label, here's your parking validation, sir. I didn't realize it was you. No need to do a banking transaction. Here's your, and he says, oh, no. Abie goes, oh, no. Rules are rules. We're actually running a little late, so if you could please hurry with my withdrawal cashier's check, please. And he just held his ground. The guy left, came back in about 10 minutes with the cashier's check in an envelope. He looked at it, thank you. The guy was so befuddled, he forgot that the parking validation. He had to go get that. 15 minutes later, we walk back to the car, go through the kiosk. Maurice is like, wow, that took a long time. Oh, they have their rules, Maurice, but thank you so much. Never a word at what happened, just, gave him the validation and went on. About 4 blocks later, he gets in his briefcase and goes through a drive-through of a different bank. Gets out a different checkbook, rips out a slip, takes the envelope and the slip, puts it in. I watched the face of this gal as she looked at this check, and I can't believe this is unfolding. She says, thank you very much, sir. Here comes the receipt. Abie, who literally has to sit on a phone book almost to see over the dashboard, is driving away. He never once looks at me, but he knew there was a lesson there, and I'm sure he knew I was curious. And he takes the receipt and he just sets it on my lap. Like, go ahead, you can look at it. And he says, silly, bad business, silly. And the deposit was for $1,007,000 and change. And I had never seen anything looking like that number in my life. And I just shook my head. I just couldn't even believe what I saw. Well, busy, right? We went here, we went there, we went here, we went there. At about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we pull right back into the same parking lot with Maurice. We wave at Maurice. We park. he grabs his briefcase, busy, and we walk right across the street. I never know where we're going and why. And we walk right into the lobby of the bank. We walk right through the lobby. We go down the hall, the back hall, and here's this great big conference room, and there is about 12 people waiting in this conference room. And Abie comes in, and I just kind of come in and stand in the corner of the room, and I'm looking at this table, and I go, is that the guy? I didn't know what was happening. Walks in, and Abie says, good morning, or good afternoon, everybody. He said, do you know how when one thing takes up more time in your day than you expected, how it sort of snowballs throughout the day? I so apologize, I'm a few minutes late. Ironically, what put me a little behind schedule happened right here this morning in this very building. And I want you to know that when Susie and I woke up this morning and made a decision regarding the bank's lease in our building, we had thought that we would extend that lease. Unfortunately, due to incidents earlier in the day, I'm not feeling comfortable extending the lease of the bank in my building. I'm fairly certain that given the customer service that I experienced this morning, that this bank is on its way out of business. Don't want to lease something to someone who's on its way out of business. That wouldn't be smart. If you have any questions regarding that, those of you with the bank that are here, I see the manager of the bank is here. Nice to see you again. Saw you this morning. I'd like you to look to him for explanation. Unfortunately, you've got 60 days left on your lease. I'll expect you to vacate the building. You'll have a letter as such from my attorney. Thank you very much for this meeting. And it has been a good run. And he kind of put a bow on it and said, busy, gotta go. I couldn't believe it. It was only then that I realized that this entire building was one of the buildings that Abie owned. The bank was a tenant on the main floor of this building. Wow. The takeaways are endless to this story. It's as if this happened yesterday in my mind. And I think on the way we size something up and we create a picture of what we think is there. And all I can tell you is every time you do that, I promise you're wrong. We have this gauge that should be disinstalled in all of us, this comparative gauge. We tend to look at someone and we say to ourselves, okay, well, I'm either further than they are or not as far as they are. We compare everything. You look at someone like Abie, he just looks like a very, very simple man, nothing extraordinary. But Abie owned most of Pioneer Square in Seattle. His influence, his footprint was huge. Here's a business that leased from him and didn't even know what the landlord looked like. Be careful. Be careful as you go out there and size things up. To really, the one that you may think has nothing, that may be the one with everything, right? I think the other lesson is watching how Abie treated everyone, from the parking lot attendant to the bank manager, even in a disagreement, to the people he worked with, treating everybody with respect and courtesy, at the same time not being pushed around by people. Bad behavior, bad decisions. You don't have to stay with people that do that on a regular basis, right? And so your world has to be dealt with wisely. And that's what I always saw with Abie, is that he had a gift of wisdom. That philosopher had a gift of wisdom. And what an amazing windfall in my life to spend that time with him during those years. I hope you have somebody like that in your life. I'm blessed every day thinking of the time I spent with Abie Label.